but I believe you've been teaching the Civics 101 at IC Stars since about 2013. And that was like cycle 27, I'm guessing.
23.
23. Okay, got it. And then you also believe that the solution and only way to protect community safety nets, public education, civil liberties, is that the people who stand for justice, peace, opportunity, and equity must run for local office and then govern at the same time. We do have someone here, Manny. Manny, you could say, hey, Manny, who's also our financial guy and politician here in the cycle. And then also from a civic standpoint, right, the obligation is on the citizens in society. You know, we kind of got to come together and bring our resources and figure out what our community's needs are, band together and resolve those issues instead of waiting for someone else to do them for us. But yeah, as we jump into the civics, you know, we've all already taken part in the technology side here at IC Stars. We looked at some of the business and the leadership things here as well. But even going with that business and leadership, right, we'll figure out and try to define what some of our community needs are, and then what we need to do to resolve some of those needs. So I hope you all enjoy this Civics 101 workshop. It'll be 4 sessions. The third session will be an interview with a board member.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry.
Yep.
Well, welcome interns of cycle 50. Amazing. So I'm Tom Tresser, and I call myself a civic educator and public defender. We're going to start each session with a little bit of music suggested by one of the interns. Today we had the amazing Lovely Day by Bill Withers, suggested by Carla. Carla, why did you pick that? You can unmute yourself and just tell us, why did you pick that song?
It makes me happy.
It makes you happy. It made me happy. Thank you. Awesome.
You're welcome.
All right. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to outline a little bit about how the class works. We are recording this session. All sessions will be recorded, edited, and placed on YouTube with a link on our class website. So please do sign in the chat with your name and the community where you are living now. So we'll have 4 sessions, as Larry mentioned, from 9 to 11. We're going to cover the distinctions of nonprofits in this class and talk about them as they relate to social justice and social change. We've created a website for you for this class, and it is right here on the web. So here it is. Okay, it is at www. Oh, here's Terry. http www.civiclabhq.us. So you'll go to that site and you'll see the pull down menu, and you want to go to cycle 50. Can everyone see this? Thumbs up if you can see it. Cool. So here you see the schedule for the 4 sessions right here, starting with today, the 17th, 24th, 31st, and the 7th. You'll also see the Zoom link is here, as well as the instructions for your final assignment. So if you're in doubt as to what we're covering or anything like that, you'll just come to this website. Also, you'll see resources from past classes. So we've covered a lot of ground in Civics 101 over the years. And over here where it says class resources, you're going to find all kinds of materials that you may want to browse at your leisure based on conversations and topics that we covered in the past. So it's quite a lot of material there. But mainly our schedule is right here on this page. Now it is password protected. So when you're challenged, the password is IC Stars. Easy to remember, all in caps. As I say, 4 sessions. The 4th session will be given over to you, the interns. Your assignment will be to create your own nonprofit based on your burning issue. So remember, we asked you what your burning issue was in our online survey. We're going to discuss some of those in our next session. So you've all identified some issue that is of deep concern to you. And we're going to talk about how to translate that concern into an organization that's fighting for it or works to solve it, much like IC Stars itself is doing right now with you, for you, about you. So IC Stars itself is a nonprofit, and we're going to use IC Stars itself as a case to bring these concepts to life over the next few weeks. All right. If you're in doubt on anything, just email me. My contact information is in the chat right now, tom@civiclab.us. And my number is 312-804-3230. Always available to you, very quick to respond. The instructions for how to do the nonprofit, what's expected of you, is on the class website. It's also online with, I guess you could say, a shared Google Doc, which is here. So if you click on this link, which is now in the chat, you can download that document as well. But the instructions are also, as I say, on the class website. Basically, in the final session, each intern will get about 5 or 6 minutes to walk us through your nonprofit. What is your solution to this burning issue that you've addressed? All right. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself now, and I'm going to run you through this little PowerPoint. And here you go. All right. So my contact information, as I say, is tom@civiclab.us, or you can also reach me at tom@trusser.com, either one. My background, well, I started out as an actor, believe it or not. That's me in a cheesy production of a sort of a murder mystery. That's me with the drink in my hand. Oh my God, I had hair. But I also was a theater producer at a place called Pegasus Players. And this is an image of a musical that we produced in a swimming pool. You can ask me about that offline. What the heck was that about? I also did community development work for a group called People's Housing, which is in North Rogers Park. I created an arts program that combined economic development, social justice, and micro enterprise. This is on Howard Street in Rogers Park. I worked for an executive education firm called Executive Knowledge Works, working with Fortune 200 companies for training and learning. I was even in an internet startup. Again, a conversation for another day. Ourhouse.com was the online play for Ace Hardware. And we burned through $160 million, my friends. And all I have to show for it is this t-shirt. Again, an amazing experience. This would be 1998, 1999. But I was the 16th hire, and we went up to about 150 people. As I say, it was the online play for the Ace Hardware chain. And I've been teaching at the graduate and undergraduate level for many years, including classes on organizing, policy, leadership, creativity, and problem solving. I was born in New York City. I came to Illinois in 1980 to be a member of the Illinois Shakespeare Festival. Again, that strange acting background. I call myself a public defender. And as we get to know one another, hopefully that will mean something to you. I've started or led 14 nonprofit enterprises. So we're going to completely dwell on that word, nonprofit. What does that mean? How does it work? That's really the focus of our time together. My hobbies include history, politics, photography, science fiction, and our tiny little garden here in the city. I've been married to 30 years to this powerhouse right here. She looks short, but she's mighty. That's Merle. Here are some of the nonprofits. Here are the classes that I've taught. As I mentioned, a lot in the space of policy, nonprofit management, etc. And these are the nonprofits that I've started. As I say, they range from arts related to community development and civic engagement. So I've created nonprofits, and I teach the fine points of nonprofit structure and management administration. And we also consult with dozens of nonprofits right now on how they can be better operating and be more powerful. My major civic work over the last few years includes stopping the privatization of Lincoln Park. We also organized to keep the Olympics out of Chicago. No Game Chicago. Go there and you can check us out. But Mayor Daley did everything in his power to bring the 2016 Olympics to Chicago. This was back in 2009. And I was part of a cadre of organizers that completely torpedoed the Olympic bid. And again, we can have that conversation maybe offline if you want to email me or chat me up. I ran for office. Yes, I did. As Larry mentioned, I do believe that is an important civic duty, civic activity, to run for office or to help someone run. And in my case, in 2010, I was the Green Party candidate for Cook County Board President. With a very small campaign, I must say, but I managed to get 54,000 votes. Toni Preckwinkle got 940,000. So she was and remains the Cook County Board President. She's now seeking, I believe, her fourth term, Toni Preckwinkle. In 2012, I created the Civic Lab. And in 2016, the book, Chicago is Not Broke, was published. This is a few images from the time where the Civic Lab was a physical space. We were a co-working space for civics. So that is to say, the groups that worked at the Civic Lab were all in organizers or troublemakers or in the policy space, if you will, and they worked with each other every day. As you can see, the desks were sort of on wheels. It was a wonderful place. In 2017, we created the Power Institute with my partner, Jonathan Peck. You can see him there standing with his arms crossed to the left. He's a well-known Chicago organizer, educator, and master trainer. So Jonathan and I are together running the Civic Lab right now. And as I mentioned, we're asking you what your burning issues are. For me, it's economic injustice. So that's, if I had to boil it down, what really gets me up at night, what keeps me going, it's to fire up this issue to make people understand it, and then equip them so we can fight it and remove the sources of economic injustice. And strange but true, I used to be a hippie back in the day, 1970. Okay, so that's a little bit about me, and now we can turn our attention to our subject matter at hand. So let me power up this presentation here, and we can move through that. We're going to do a little small group work in a minute, but first, here we go. So I'm going to share the screen. Now everyone should be seeing introduction to the nonprofit sector. Thumbs up. You see that? Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to be talking about this critter called the nonprofit sector. And we want to get a couple of things straight about it. You know, what it is and what some of the distinctions are. And so the first question that we sort of want to ask is, why? Why have nonprofits? And here's a funny cartoon where the lady says, oh, we can start a midnight knitting program for youth. Perfect. We'll call it Knitted Together Against Violence. So the idea is, here's some women, here's some people sharing something, and it's kind of humorous, but it's kind of gets at this point of people with some shared interest trying to do something for the common good and creating this thing called a nonprofit to make it an agency, to get it done. And that's kind of the unifying principle here. But to go back in time, I call your attention to this guy, Alex de Tocqueville, who was a French nobleman who visited America in the early years of our country back in 1832. And he wrote a book called Democracy in America, published in the early 1830s. And he made a lot of interesting observations about America at the time, some of which I think were very, very keen and still remain true. And one of the things he noted was that forming associations is part of the American character. Forming associations is kind of part of our DNA. And this is what he said: Americans of all ages, all conditions, constantly form associations. They have not only commercial and manufacturing companies, but associations of thousands of other kinds: religious, moral, serious, futile, all kinds. The Americans make associations to give entertainments, to found seminaries, to build inns, to construct churches, and so on. In this manner, they found hospitals, prisons, and schools. If it is proposed to inculcate some truth or to foster some feeling by the encouragement of a great example, they form a society. Whenever at the head of some new undertaking, you see in government in France or a man of rank in England, in the United States, you will be sure to find an association. In democratic countries, the science of association is the mother science. The progress of all the rest depends upon the progress it has made. So let's break this down. This is an example. This is somebody who's observing a young country, as I say, 1830s. And he's saying something I think that's still pretty true, that if things want to happen to move society forward, generally speaking, he's saying in some places, the government does all the heavy lifting. In some other places, it's people of rank and privilege who move things forward. But in America, it's just the folks. We get together, we propose, we solve, and we build. So he was astounded by all the clubs and groups he came across. And I think his remarks captured an essential truth about Americans, and that is we do democracy. We get together. And this ability to get together, to share ideas, and then to sort of share labor, to say, okay, let's get it done. Let's roll up our sleeves and tackle this problem, to collaborate and cooperate and co-create and co-organize, I believe is a distinctly American character. And I hope to demonstrate that this to you through our time together. So that brings me to the first question that I have for you all is, why do you volunteer? I know that many of you do, and you shared some of the things that you do, but you can just open up your microphone and share or type into the chat. Why do you volunteer? Can hear from anybody. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the times I've volunteered in the past, it's always I don't know, I just find it fun to interact with people and like know that I'm helping in some way, and like having more like interpersonal connections. Just feels nice. I guess like it's nice to have that kind of connection with people.
I think that is so important. Thank you for sharing. It feels good. And you know why? It's because it's part of our human DNA. Scientists and biologists and anthropologists have noted that human beings are wired to collaborate and to cooperate and to help one another, believe it or not. I know it may sound hard to believe in our crazy country, but it is true. So yes, it feels good. to help and to be of service. And somebody says there's a change I want to see, and you put your rolls up your sleeves, and you're part of the change. You're doing something positive. Gabriel, can you speak more to what you just said? A positive impact on the youth?
Yeah, so basically, why I started wanting to volunteer was because I was in a mentorship program in high school called I Mentor. And I noticed like I was going down the wrong path for a pretty long time until like one day, like I just snapped out of it and decided to actually do something for my community as well as do something for others. And if I have the ability to do that, well, then I might as well be utilized in some type of way. So I try to mentor as many adolescents and children as I can, because one day, like basically they're the future. And so all eyes are on them. And it's like really no longer about me. It's about what I do. And so if I could spark a change, then I think I'd be content with that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So there's a lot in Gabe's remarks. Do you know? I say it's a little like paying it forward, but also I detected the idea that he was helped. He was blessed. Somebody helped him, right? He got some aid. They didn't have to give him any help, but there was a program, there was a person, there was something that he said he was going down the wrong path, but there was a program in place that he took advantage of, and he got benefits from it. So now he's saying, I'd like to do the same for some young people coming up after me. It feels right. It feels correct. It feels good. So I say, paying it forward. Manuel, you say you want to set an example. Can you say more about that?
In my community, our state representatives has like this she's very involved with communities like from Little Village, where basically she goes around and gets concerns from the communities. And I feel like when I first joined her group, I saw a lot of young guys younger than me that were like registering voters, advocating for like, against abortion, stuff like that, things that concern the communities. And just seeing that kind of gave me a sense of I should be part of that as well, just seeing young people. So, and not only that, when like leaders, world business, even government will come and see these young people, it kind of lets them know that how it kind of makes them think about how they've been pursuing their careers, and seeing these young guys volunteering and putting their heart out kind of gets them reflecting and how they're progressing and which direction they should be heading with their power and position of influence. So that's why I stated that statement.
Cool. So sometimes you make the path by walking it. Sometimes you are the leader we're looking for. So you set an example. You see an example and you mimic that example. Like you see something that inspires you, and then you say, well, I can do that too. And then others will see me. And it's kind of like, again, you're passing this good vibe along. You're seeing someone who's helpful, as you say, a local leader, and then you sort of mirror that, or you follow that person's footsteps in your own way. And then people see you and go, wow, I want to be like Manny. I want to do what Manny's doing. And again, these things are all part of this mysterious process of nonprofit volunteerism. Now, we're gonna get way into this, but you can start to see a few themes, I think, if you just reflect on what we're hearing here. Are you being paid for any of this, by the way? Is anyone paying you, Manny, to do this work? Gabe, anyone paying you to do this? No. And it would be weird, wouldn't it? It's like, okay, Gabe, if you mentor these 5 kids for the sports team, I'm going to give you $50. No, it doesn't work that way. You do it because your heart says you should do it, right? For whatever reason. In case Gabe's case, he said, well, I was going down the wrong path, and he could see now reflecting, I'm hearing in your voice, you're saying, I'm looking back on my younger self and I could have gone really bad. It could have been bad for me, right? If I hadn't met that person or been in that program. And so, yes, that is what we call, that's like civic money. There's no cash involved here, right? But there is some kind of exchange. There is some benefits that you're getting, I'm hearing. It's not a cash benefit, but you're being fulfilled. You're feeling you're doing the right thing. These are all, I guess you could say, forms of payment in a way, but it's not a monetary exchange. You see, and this is a key part of this entire concept, because we know what the medium of exchange is in for-profit businesses, do we not? Right? So you go to the Apple store and you buy an iPhone for $900 or whatever, $1,200, whatever it is. That's a straight up commercial transaction. The iPhone guys are going to give you the iPhone for nothing, even if he loves you. You can't do that, right? Steve Jobs can't give you free iPhones. You got to pay for it, do you not? And that is kind of a basic distinction we're going to get to in a minute. So in the world of commerce, we make things, whether it's the iPhone or the Sunday paper that you read yesterday, or whatever it is that you're, doing, the clothes on your body, whatever it is that you bought that thing, and the company that sold it to you made a profit, didn't it? It has to. In no shape or form can a company make money by giving you a product that it costs, where the cost is less than it costs to make the product, right? That's a fundamental. So the idea is, in the for-profit world, I'm selling you something, you're buying that thing, whatever it is, the iPhone, the shirt, the sneakers, the bottle of Coca-Cola, whatever it is that you're eating or drinking or consuming, and the company that sold it to you had to make a profit, didn't they not? Now, if the company is losing money, at some point, it's just going to go out of business. So we've seen that happen. Companies try things and they don't succeed. Not enough people bought their stuff. It goes away. But we're going to see in the wonderful world of nonprofits, that is not the case. It's a different construct. Okay, so we're getting a sense of volunteering. This issue of the heart is not of the marketplace, is one of our first lessons that we have to understand in the world of nonprofits. That what's driving this construct is not commerce, which is pretty easy to measure. Do I make money or do I not? But what is driving our nonprofits is something different. And it's about service. It's about solving problems. It's about educating and making things better. That's one of the key points that I want to leave with you this morning. Now, the other basic thing that we want to talk about this morning is that there are three parts to our society, three huge parts. There's the government, okay? And we all understand the government, so that's elected officers, that's the structure of government, the courts, if you will, the federal government, everything. When I say government, I'm including all parts of government. And as I say, the second thing that we talk about in this work is the for-profit sector. So this is any company that exists to sell you something and make profit from it, whatever it is. It could be a manufactured item like the iPhone, or it could be a service like Netflix. But what we're talking about is the third sector, the nonprofit sector, which is a little awkward to describe a whole sector of society in the negative. It's a little awkward, right? Sometimes you'll hear that the nonprofit sector is also described as the independent sector. That is a term that you may hear. or sometimes the third sector. So when you hear those terms, the third sector, the independent sector, the nonprofit sector, we're talking about this part of society that is not government, and it is not existing for commerce and profit. So that's basically the three sectors. Okay. Now, we're going to do a little bit of small group work in a minute. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to split the class into three groups. Group one, you're going to go to that first page for, and you're going to talk about government. Group two, you're going to go to the second Jamboard page, which is about for-profits. And group three, you're going to go to the page on nonprofits. So you'll put examples, then you'll say, what are the products? What are the outputs of this sector? Who are the users? Again, just create little post-it notes. Who does it? Who actually is the deliverer of this service, of this sector? So put examples. How is it paid for? So again, post those answers in little post-it notes. You can even upload pictures if you want to. And then how is that changed? How is this thing changed? So again, group one, you're going to be here. Group two, you're going to be here. And group three, you're going to be there. All right. So let's give it a shot. So let's have someone from the first group or room one that was working on government. Tell us your thinking and explain us what you put on the Jamboard. Someone from room one, please.
Okay, so for the examples for government, we actually chose GOP, POTUS, Senate, military, the Supreme Court, TSA, Postal Service,
Right.
basically like government entities.
Exactly.
And so the products would be, well, from what they make, it would be like highways, roadways, schools, legislations, benefits,
Right,
so
right.
like SNAP, welfare, things of that nature.
So take a pause. This is huge. So the product is, we're kind of stretching the word product, if you will, but I think you got it exactly on point what we're trying to get here. So the product could be, like you say, a service like education. Like you need a school to go to this, to get to this, but I mean, what's happening is education is the product in that case, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And like you say, if you build a road, that's a thing, but really the product, you might say, is like transportation or something, or, ability to move around the country. Right? Okay. I think I'm on your vibe here. Keep going.
All right. And so who are the users? Well, that'd be, of course, the citizens of the United States, because that's who the government serves.
Right. So
And
we are the consumers, if you will.
yes.
Okay.
And well, who does it and who delivers it? Well, they go back to GOP, POTUS, all government entities. So like postal services, things of that nature.
So, okay, so take a pause there. So there it's like, there's different pieces to that government puzzle. So there's the elected folks, right? So that would be like your president, your mayor, that kind of thing, right? But then you also pointed out their employees, obviously, the postal guys, the soldiers, they're not elected, but they are part of the government, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so how is it paid for? Of course, it's paid through various types of taxes, as well as like the lottery, and like basically anything that comes out of citizens' pockets. That's how it's paid for.
Exactly. Spot on. Right. So can you not pay taxes?
I mean, you can, but you don't have to, but you will get.
Yeah, it's
Put
not
it
a good
down.
idea. You don't want to get the IRS after you, my friend. So people say the old joke was there's only two things certain in life, death and taxes. And you can say like, I don't want to pay for, I don't want, the government takes too much money. I mean, we can get into that conversation, like, are the taxes too high? Are the taxes too low? But the point is, only a government can make a tax. The iPhone, the Apple cannot put a tax on everybody in Chicago. We'll get to that in a minute, but I think that's a very critical point that you guys brought up. Taxes and fees, essentially. Exactly so. Okay, keep going.
And so how has it changed? It's changed through voting legislation or any bills that are passed, or like government entities such as like airports, postal services, if they pass any what is that? How do you say it?
Regulation,
Yeah,
legislation.
regulations. Yeah,
Yes.
things like that.
Exactly. So if you don't like, we, the customers, if you will, if we don't like the way it's going, what's our options?
Well, you could always vote or contribute to the communities, such as running for, or you yourself can actually run for these positions as well.
Right, exactly. So if you don't like the way things are going, or on the other hand, if you love the way things are going, you express that partially through your vote. And there's a saying, your vote is your voice. So that is true, and I absolutely do believe that, and that's what I teach. And you can dispute that. I mean, again, we can have a conversation, but I think at this level, I think I grant you this point that if you're trying to change the course of things, one of the ways to do it, or certainly a powerful way, is through your vote, which means there better be some candidates out there to vote for, which is a whole nother subject. But yes, and then also through organizing and through protest and other ways that you can make your voices heard, right? I think you guys, does anybody else want to add anything to what Gabe has said from your group? I think you guys covered it pretty good. Anything else anyone want to add from room number one? Cool. Okay, I think you guys really covered the waterfront there and help us understand some of these key piece parts of this thing called government, what we call the first sector, if you will. And it has things that are unique to it, obviously. And I think you pointed out some of them. It has power, doesn't it? It has the power of the state. So Gabe, you can't go and arrest anybody. If Terrence pisses you off, you can't arrest Terry, right? You can't arrest Anthony and put him in the Gabe jail. You can be upset with your friend and you can go, you pissed me off. You said something that offended me or whatever. You can have a conversation, right? But you the citizens, we don't have that power of the state behind us. And that is a key distinction also in government. Okay, very good stuff. Let's go to room 2. For profits. Oh, lots of good stuff here. Who wants to speak to room 2? Someone from room 2, please. Come on, somebody from room 2.
I guess I'll talk about room 2 for
Okay,
everyone.
go ahead, Zach. Cool.
So, do you want me to just go down the list of what we
Yeah,
talked about?
start with examples.
Okay, so for examples, the first thing I put was Accenture just because it was a company we're working with. It's on my mind. But examples are just like any sort of company that makes a product that you have to pay for. Obviously, it's a for-profit. So we just listed specifics.
Exactly.
How this is paid for. We talked about investors, profit, sales, and tax breaks.
Nice.
So those are like the 3 biggest things that contribute to, how they make money. The products, pretty much anything. We got clothes, food, supplies, tech in the first one, which covers a lot. We got entertainment and utilities and services. And those are all things that are paid for. And then the users are either like businesses, which is what clients, or just like everyday people that need to buy stuff.
Excellent.
Who does it or delivers it? We got sweatshops, programmers being exploited, and employees.
Yes.
So a lot of I guess the profit industry is figuring out the best way to exploit people's labor for as cheap as possible and to make more profit. So I feel like that's a big point. But there's also regular employees that
Sure,
are treated
yeah,
well.
sure. Excellent.
And then how it's changed, we have money boycotting and diversity. So organizations are really only changed when they're forced to. So if you pay them, if you stop buying their product, or if you enter, like give new perspectives.
Got it. Oh, man, you guys hit the jackpot. Very good indeed. Okay, let's start at the top. Examples. Yeah, large companies, and of course, you guys are focusing on the technology space, so it's natural that we'd be thinking of these large companies, and they are producing goods and services, some of which are taken up by the consumer, like you and me, and others are taken up by businesses. So we call that B2C. So if your business is focusing on other businesses, you're saying it's B2B. So the customer there is not the guy in the street buying a newspaper or buying a pair of shoes. It's another company. So that's called B2B, business to business. And also you give examples of like Sony or Nike would be B2C, where the company is selling directly to me, the end user. I'm putting the shoes on my feet. Exactly so. And the products, as you pointed out, are pretty much anything. And you gave a great example. How is it paid for? Very excellent. Investors. So that's how I start my company. Before I sell anything, I have to have a factory, or I have to have offices, I have to have employees. And before I make my first shoe, right, or before I turn out my first iPhone, and there's a lot of work that goes on there, right, before we sell the first item. So that requires investors. And why do I invest? Why do I invest, Zach?
I mean, normally I would say people invest because they believe in something. Like, you know, a lot of times you'll have like meetings and pitch your business to a bunch of people. So it's like you kind of have to make them believe in what you're creating or what you're having people pay for.
And so I do say that's true. And you pitch me, Zach, as an entrepreneur, and I, Tom Tresser, want to invest in you. So what am I hoping to get if I do invest in your business, Zach?
You're hoping to get, well, normally you're hoping to get at least part of the business, or at least some of the profits that they see.
Yes, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not investing in Zach because I like you. I mean, that may be part of it, but it's your idea. It's your business idea. How is it going to make me money? What is your thought to bring profit? So you can imagine the guy, Steve Jobs, and his colleagues going to investors, 40, 50 years ago saying, hey, we have this idea to put a computer like in everybody's living room. Everybody have a computer. And people are saying, what? That's crazy. That's nutty. People don't need computers. That's stupid. Computers fill up whole rooms. You know what I mean? So imagine, that pitch, for the first personal computer. But whoever that person was, and there was someone who took Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak up on their vision, they did invest, and of course they made beaucoup bucks. Okay, cool. You talked about who are the users, clients, and that's it, and customers, consumers. That's a great point. Now, over on the first side, when we talked about government, we used a different word that started with C. What was that word from government? Gabe, what was that first word that the users started with the word C? Tell us again, Gabe. Unmute and tell us what that C word was.
You talking about citizens?
Yes. Yes. So now can we have a thought about the difference between someone acting as a citizen and someone acting as a consumer?
Well, for the most part, with citizens, that just means basically reserved within that country or state or whatever the case may be, whereas consumer, that's global and anybody that's willing to buy for in that spectrum.
Okay, so there's a sense that if you're in a country, you belong to a country, you're in a country, you're a citizen of that country, and would you say there are duties and responsibilities?
I'd say yes, as in paying your taxes, voting, and really just embedding yourself within that area of moral, basically moral obligation as well.
Right. So it's important to note that if I'm a citizen of a country or a body politic, I have my rights and responsibilities. I have the right to travel, the right to get married, the right to speak out like I'm speaking to you now. No one is over my shoulder telling me what to teach to you, right? I was hired by Icy Stars, by Sandy Kestrel. She likes me. She thinks I'm good at what I do. No one was forcing her to hire me or not to hire me, right? This is kind of what we think about as rights and responsibilities. But I also believe that I have the right to, I should have the responsibility to vote, to be a good citizen, to obey the law and not run around cracking people on the head if they piss me off. So I try to be a good member of society. And you guys have talked a little bit about that as well, like to volunteer, to be helpful. These are what I call parts of the rights and responsibilities. Now, over on the consumer side, Zach, does any of that hold? A customer?
I'd say no, because like customers don't really have like a right or like a responsibility to help the company at all.
Customers buy based on the product features and price.
Plus,
And
like buying something is support enough, you know, for a company at least.
so it's a different, I think you're seeing what I'm trying to get at here. It's two different kinds of roles. Now you can be obviously a customer and buy stuff today and tomorrow, and at the same time be a citizen, obviously, and you're voting, you're paying your taxes, you're obeying the law, you're volunteering, you're doing those things. But the problem sometimes is when they're mixed up. And I just want to call to your attention that these are two distinct roles that have different features, and we oughtn't mix them up. So you shouldn't, in my world, you don't think of government as a business making profits. That's not how to think about government. And some people would argue you shouldn't think of businesses as charities. They exist to make profit and to serve needs. So those are 2 points of view that I just put on the table. People do debate them, but that's kind of where I come down. All right. How does it deliver? Zach pointed out it's mostly employees. And I think part of what you were trying to get at is how are those employees treated? If the employees are treated well and they are paid for their labor, that's good. And so hopefully everyone, when they're finished with Icy Stars, based on the previous 49 cycles, you guys are going to go out and get good jobs. It's pretty much what the story is all about here. And you'll be making a good salary, hopefully, and you may choose to get married or have a house or not have a house or whatever. You know, you may want to buy an island in the Caribbean and go down there and retire. Whatever your dreams are, require money. And no one's just going to give you money unless your parents are millionaires. You know, maybe some of you got millionaire parents, but probably not. So you're going to put your labor out there, and hopefully you'll be well paid for your labor. Now, remember what Sandy says, we're working from what? The shoulders up, right? And this is part of how our economy is structured, so that knowledge workers, people who work with their brains, are getting paid better than people who simply work with their arms. Now, is that fair? Is that right? I can't speak to that, but it is true. Okay. We don't want to treat our employees poorly. As you said, sweatshops, I think you used the word, is where you're abusing your labor and maybe even stealing their wages. So they're not even, you know, that people are working for you and you're gonna, maybe they're undocumented. And we've seen that. So people need a job, they don't have their papers, and then the employer stiffs them. It doesn't pay them the wages that they deserve. hoping, knowing that the people, the laborers will not turn them in because they're afraid of being deported. So that's part of what you're talking about, a sweatshop where people are abusing the labor that works for them. We don't want it. We don't want that. And finally, how has it changed? I think you guys mentioned that one way is just don't buy anything. So if you withhold your money, the product doesn't get bought, and that's how you're making your voice. Or sometimes you hear the expression voting with your dollars. So there's something called a boycott, which you put in the chat, meaning you intentionally withhold your money from a company and you let everybody know about it. So you say, we're not going to, Tresser Industries is a terrible employer. Don't buy Tresser's sneakers because he uses child labor in Malaysia, and he's a no good guy. So we're boycotting, we're picketing Tom Tresser's products, and if you do it well enough, it'll hurt. The opposite is true, and that's called a boycott, where you say Tom Tresser's sneakers are virtuous. He's paying his people great. You should buy Tom Tresser sneakers. Everybody buy his sneakers, and so it's the opposite. You're driving people to my business, and you're basically rewarding me. You're saying, Tom, way to go. You're better than that other sweatshop guy over there. Screw him. We're not buying his sneakers. We're gonna make you profitable, and that's how we reward you. Awesome. Anybody want to add anything from group 2? Room 2. Pretty thorough, I would say. Okay. Now, last but not least, our nonprofits. So someone from group 3, please, or room 3, please tell us what's what.
So
Okay, cool.
as far as the users, it's basically anyone who's able to profit from it, and it's typically people with a lower social status or low income.
Okay, cool. Examples?
As far as the examples, there are things like tutoring programs, soup kitchens, community outreach, things of that nature. As far as the products, it's anything that can be sold and or utilized as regulated goods and services. It can be used for nonprofit accumulation as well as social services. As
Great.
far as how it's paid for through donations, fundraising, grants, loans, tax deductibles, gifts, and trust royalties.
Excellent.
How has it changed? It's changed via various board meetings and voting committees dedicated to regulating the organization. And who does it, delivers it, is the people. Pretty much anybody that's willing to volunteer or work for a nonprofit, they deliver the services as far as like helping out resources, and they sometimes utilize contractors as well.
Excellent. Now, I think we're going to see some pretty good distinctions now between the first 2 sectors that you guys have elucidated, and now this third sector, or the nonprofit sector. So who are the users? It's basically anybody. Now, you said mainly there are people with some sort of disadvantages. This is true, but think about it. Is a church a nonprofit?
Yeah.
So there's, or how about the YMCA or the YWCA, or even theaters that you might visit. So if you go to the theater, I mean, not the movie theater, but like the Goodman Theater or the Steppenwolf Theater or ETA on the South Side, those are nonprofits too. So really anybody can consume the nonprofit service, but it is true that a lot of nonprofits have things especially designed for people who are in trouble, who might have some needs, things of this nature, as you pointed out. Examples: tutoring programs, soup kitchens, community outreach, all excellent examples. What about IC Stars itself? Is IC Stars a nonprofit?
Yeah.
It is. What is the product of IC Stars?
Community leaders in the technology field.
Ah, excellent. Yeah, I thought the answer would be getting jobs, training interns so they get jobs. That is true, but I think you are spot on the money when you say the real product, the real payoff, as good as the first one is even better, and that is leadership for our communities in the future. So that's the product. You're 100%. Okay. How is it paid for? You pointed out a few things. So tell me what a donation is.
A donation is pretty much any type of money that's given without any taxes behind it. So it's no type of profit. So it doesn't need to be necessarily wrote off on taxes for monetization, but it can be wrote off to let them know that you did acquire it.
Right. So when I give you a donation, am I getting something in return? Like, am I getting an iPad or a sneaker?
Typically, when you give a donation, it's pretty much like the same as buying something. The only difference is like the way it's wrote off in taxes and what it actually means to donate versus actually buying.
Well, I think we need to sharpen that a little. If I donate money, I'm actually not getting any physical thing in return. So if I donate $100 to Icy Stars, which I have done, what am I getting? Am I getting $100 worth of interns? I mean, are you coming to my house to cook me dinner? No, that would be crazy. So a donation is a voluntary transfer of resources where there is no, what I would call, economic return. The exchange is a little different, isn't it? Than if I bought, if you got up from your seat right now, Terrence, and went outside and bought a Starbucks coffee for $3, someone would say, Jesus, that's an expensive cup of coffee there, dude. But you say, I like this Starbucks. I like their coffee, and their brand is good. It's a good brand. I know it's going to be a good cup of coffee. Whereas I go to this other place down the street, it could be crap. I don't want to buy a crappy cup of coffee. So it's very well understood what the exchange is. You're giving the Starbucks guy $3 or $5 even, and you're getting that hot cup of Joe. And you're paying for the coffee, obviously, but do you know how much money is actually spent on making that cup of coffee? If I told you 5 cents, would you be surprised?
No, not really.
But it still doesn't bother you, right? It's okay. We're done with that. It's okay. We don't care that there might be 5 cents of coffee beans in Starbucks and that it's 100,000% profit on the cup of coffee. That's okay for many reasons. Okay, that is not the case when you donate. All right, excellent. You also talked about grants. Now that is a super point. So when Icy Stars gets a grant, what is happening? What does that mean?
Grants are kind of like similar to scholarships, whereas you get money towards like academic funding to a certain degree. But grants, I know that's like completely free money.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so a grant means somebody, and it usually could be a foundation, or it could be a government, or it could be a corporation. Basically says, here's a pot of money, and we'll give it to any nonprofit. This is, again, you have to be a nonprofit who meets the criteria. So sometimes if the company is, or the foundation is helping technology or diversity or helping young people, a group like Icy Stars can say, we apply to that grant, we fall into your category. We satisfy the standards by which you're giving, and here's our stuff. Here's our application. Here's our track record. Here's our records, so you can see that we're for real. And please give us this free money. And the people who have the money, whether it's the corporation or the foundation, they have some criteria. They don't have unlimited funds, so they can't say yes to everybody, but they can give IC Stars a big check because they are doing this good work. So that's the grant. And you also talked about trusts and royalties. These are other things too. So IC Stars can also publish a book, couldn't they? Called How to Train People to Change the World. Maybe that's Sandy's biography, right? So say she publishes the biography, which is the story of IC Stars, which is also talks about how to set up an IC Stars, say, in your city. So maybe that's the book that Sandy publishes, right? She sells it for $40. And she says, I'll take 5 for myself, but I'm going to give 35 from each book sold to IC Stars. She could do that, right? That's kind of what you're talking about. So IC Stars could actually sell products. I know sometimes in the past, IC Stars has done services, like people have done apps and other kinds of businesses, right? And people can purchase those services and the money can stay with IC Stars. So if you go, say, to the Museum of Art on Michigan Avenue, right? You'll see what? You're going to see a big store, won't you? When you go into the museum, they're selling you pictures, they're selling you purses, jewelry, books, obviously. That money benefits, obviously, the museum. And so can IC Stars play that game if they wish to. All right. This is all excellent stuff, you guys. You really have, I think, covered the bases. So now I'm going to return to the PowerPoint and we'll try to nail some things down before our time is up. All right, so let's make sure that we're still seeing the screen. All right, so now you see the 3 sectors. Everybody sees that? Okay. All right, to recap, 3 sectors: government, for-profit, and nonprofit. You all have successfully identified examples, users, how the thing is paid for, and how it's changed. And I think we see there are big differences, aren't there, in each of the 3 sectors? 3 separate, different ways to think about it. Don't mix them up, because you can't vote to put Sandy out of office, right? It doesn't work. You got to keep things in their right bucket. I can vote for the next president. I can vote for the next mayor, right? I can vote for the next governor. These are things that make sense. I can't vote to make Steve Jobs is no longer with us. I can't vote to make Steve Jobs leave his job. I can't vote to have Sandy Kestrel move from IC Stars to run the YMCA. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I think you guys have nailed that 100%. The main thing we want to leave you with today is that nonprofits are mission driven, not profit driven. And I think you all have understood this, and I think you all have come to that conclusion. But let me just nail it one more time with a hammer. Nonprofits exist to serve a mission. Now remember this word mission. We're going to really hit it hard in our next class. What is the mission of IC Stars? I'm going to ask you to think about that. I think you've already kind of hinted at it. I think you probably could answer me with great detail. The purpose of the nonprofit is to serve a mission or respond to some situation or opportunity that has not been addressed. Key point: has not been addressed. They serve constituents who are left underserved or not served by the government and the for-profit sectors. So for whatever reason, government and the for-profit business is not addressing the issues that IC Stars is addressing. And so Sandy and her colleagues created IC Stars to fill the gap. Or sometimes we say to meet an unmet need. So I'm gonna put that in the chat. Nonprofits exist to serve or meet unmet need. Now, why would you think the need is unmet? Or to think it another way, why did we have to have an IC stars in the first place? Anybody?
Because there was a need.
There was a need, but why? Who was not doing their job? If you want to think of it that way.
The for-profit companies or the government.
Yeah, for-profit companies. What weren't the for-profit companies doing?
Creating equal opportunity amongst the underrepresented.
Yeah. So people of color, people like you, from different communities, people whose communities maybe weren't being served adequately, people who were not getting the opportunities that they should have been. I mean, if you look at the statistics, right? Say there's 1,000 people in America. It's kind of half and half. It's like it's about 50% whitish and 50% not whitish. It's about 50% male, 50% female. So if you just looked at the tech sector, and if the tech sector was representative of America, you'd see what? If it was representative, what would you see, Gabe?
That it's predominantly white or Asian.
Yeah, so it's not 50-50, right?
Yeah.
No, you know this. But I'm just saying this to bring up the example. If the for-profit sector and government had, quote, done what was right, there would have been no need for IC Stars or other nonprofits that are doing this kind of good work. But for many reasons, obviously, that is not the case. The world is filled with injustice and BS and unfairness, and it requires the labors of people like Sandy and her colleagues across the world to labor on behalf of justice and to labor on behalf of what I would call remedying a crappy situation. So it's the mission, this mission of nonprofits, which provides the meaning, the focus, the direction of the organization. So IC Stars would not start a pizzeria, even if Sandy was a great pizza maker, even if everybody loved pizza. It doesn't make any sense. That's not the purpose of IC Stars. You follow me? And if somebody in IC Stars said, hey, what, I have a great pizza recipe, let's buy a pizza oven, it wouldn't make any sense. It doesn't track. That's not why you're here. And also the mission provides the uniqueness and the niche of the organization. We're going to see this is really important when you're trying to raise money and get resources. Why should I care about IC Stars? Aren't there 100 organizations doing the same thing? Are there? Anybody?
Not really.
Not really. No. And so you see another feature of an excellent nonprofit. It's filling a niche or doing something that should be done, but it's just not being done. Now, in the years since Sandy has established these IC Stars, there are other groups in America, obviously, and even in Chicago and in Northern Illinois that are in a similar, I would say, similar space about bringing people of color into this world of STEM, of technology, education, engineering, math, right? But remember, IC Stars is over 30 years old. So I can tell you that when it started, it was unique, totally unique in America, and remains, I think, pretty special. But again, over time, people see good things and they kind of copy it, which is a good thing. So we see programs like IC Stars, in similar spaces and places following the lead of this organization. But this is the critical point, this idea of mission. All right. The scope of nonprofits. As I mentioned, you come into contact with nonprofits every week. If you think about your journey through the week, I ask you to, write on a paper, and share it next week, how many nonprofits you come in contact with. So if you have anything to do with schools, universities, daycare centers, sports places like the YMCA, your church, if you go to a house of worship over the weekend, you are consuming a nonprofit service. If you go to the theater, you are consuming a nonprofit service. If you're involved in any kind of environmental work, again, nonprofit. and many other organizations. You're going to hear the term 501c3. That is referring to the section of the Internal Revenue Service Code that makes nonprofits possible. And they are the ones that are sort of in the service and education space. So most of the nonprofits that we're going to talk about or deal with are what we call 501c3s. Now, these nonprofits do a lot of things. They provide service. You already mentioned that. They do culture. They advocate and educate. So you could say, what is the method by which IC Stars delivers its work? It's through education, right? You guys are learning stuff, are you not? So there are classes you're taking, you're teaching each other, maybe you're coaching each other, but there may be a class on how to use Excel. There may be a class on HTML. There may be a class on how to write a resume. So some of you have never written a resume. Some of you have. So now you'll be better at these various activities. So this is education that's happening. But we mentioned faith. That's happening inside the house of worship, and health. So you break your leg and you go over to Northwestern Hospital or whatever, Advent Hospital, that's a nonprofit. Okay, and you're consuming those services. Cool. Now, here are the key aspects that I want to call your attention to. These are what I would call the operating distinctions. The one, it's mission driven, number one, above all else. The nonprofit is driven by the mission it's created to serve and fulfill unmet needs. It could charge for a service. That's possible. Are you being charged for being an IC Stars? No. Are you being paid? Are you being paid? Yes, you are. I'm not saying you're getting a boatload of money, but you are not paying, which is very interesting. However, if you were to go to the YMCA, isn't there a modest fee to join the Y? Yeah, so it's possible for a nonprofit to charge a fee. In some cases, it does. Okay. The federal government grants the organization its nonprofit status and is classified as such if you meet the criteria, which we're trying to elucidate to you, that you are of service, that you're not charging a lot of money for your products, that you have a board of directors, that you're fulfilling other obligations under the law. You may get this nonprofit status, which means you don't pay an income tax. So IC Stars, which has a good budget, does not pay federal income tax. Whereas a corporation, Tom Tresser's Pizzeria, I have to pay tax. So that's a distinction of our sector. We do not pay, our organizations do not pay income tax. Now, can you earn more money than you spend? Yes, you can. In the for-profit world, we call those profits. In the nonprofit world, they're not really called such. We call them revenue in excess of expenses. But you can say it's a profit if you want to. But yes, IC Stars can spend $1,000 to do its business for the whole year, its staff, its rent, and it can make $2,000. But that extra $1,000 isn't treated like it is if we're in the for-profit world. That extra $1,000 doesn't go to Sandy like a bonus so she can go to the Bahamas or something, or to Larry. They get paid salaries and they can get benefits, but the money that IC Stars might make in excess of what it costs to operate is put back into the operation. So they could put it in the bank for a rainy day. They could maybe buy some more computers with it or something. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't go to the personnel as a for-profit company when they make money. Doesn't go. There is no stakeholders. There's no shareholders, which is interesting. So this is what I just said. If the organization earns a surplus, that money is plowed back into the organization, it is not paid out in dividends or executive bonuses. Now, here's a funny one. Who owns IC Stars?
The board.
The board. All right, the board stands for the community and is the steward, not the owner of the nonprofit. So this is a critical point. There is no shares. Sandy cannot sell Icy Stars to Tom Trusser. I can't buy her out. There is no, it doesn't work in this field. But you're correct in that the board of directors acts on behalf of the community. They are the stewards, that is to say, the shepherds, the keepers of the flame, to make sure what? That Sandy and the other managers of Icy Stars stays true to the mission. That is one of the chief responsibilities of the board, to make sure that Icy Stars is true to its mission and does it in a very good and responsible manner. The board of directors also hires and evaluates the president and CEO. That would be Sandy. And Sandy, as the chief executive, in turn, hires the rest of her staff and evaluates them. But it's the board of directors who actually evaluates Sandy and determines her compensation. But their main job is to make sure that this Icy Stars, as a nonprofit, does not stray and remains true to its mission. And of course, in so doing, they're busy with a lot of jobs and functions, which we'll hear about in our third section. But the funny part to remember is here that there is no one who actually owns a nonprofit. That may be a little funny to think about, but that is the reality. And as I say, the board acts without pay, which is again an unusual feature. They're volunteers in a very real sense, and they represent the community. And the community, if you will, is kind of the true owner of the nonprofit, if you want to think of it in that term. Now, finally, the last point I want to make to you is that people who use the service of a nonprofit do not pay the full cost of that service, which again makes no sense for the for-profit world. And I think we hit that pretty hard. I don't think we need to repeat that. For-profit could not last very long if what they were charging for their products and services didn't cover the costs plus profit. That's how for-profits work. But it's the opposite for nonprofits. Nonprofits pretty much exist, if you want to think of it, to make something available at free or below cost. So again, in the case of the YMCA, you might have to pay $100 a year for the membership. But if you took all the members of that Y and multiplied it by the membership fees, would that cover the full cost of the YMCA? Not by a long shot. And so that goes back to the point you made about grants and donations. That's where the rest of the money comes. We're going to cover this in more detail in our next class. We're going to take a look at Icy Star's own budget, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll start to realize what it takes to keep a nonprofit like Icy Stars running. It's a big operation. It takes a lot of people, a lot of love to keep it going. We covered a lot of ground, my friends. Are there any questions or comments on the material we've covered so far? Anything at all? The floor is open. We have a few minutes left. Are we good on these three sectors, the for-profit, nonprofit, and government? We're good? Okay, cool. In our second session, next Tuesday, we're going to really dwell on the concept of mission. We're going to talk about what is this mission thing? How does that work? What is a mission statement? We're going to look at Icy Star's own mission and ask you to reflect on it. Can you recite it? Can you find it? Where is the Icy Star's mission? Is it on the wall in the dining room? Where is it? And what does it mean to have a really great mission statement? Why is that so important? And we're going to ask you to share with us, with the rest of your class, your burning issue as we start the path towards constructing our own nonprofits. And what you're going to see is by articulating your burning issue, the thing that makes you pissed off, the thing that you care about, that's going to lead you to the nonprofit that you're going to construct that will solve and deal with your burning issue. And that you'll see that's the germ of the mission right there. In that mental exercise, you're going to see how this works. Okay? All right, my friends. That is our time that we have together for session 1 of Civics 101 for IC Stars Cycle 50.
Yay, thank you.
All right, my
Thank you,
friends.
Tom. Appreciate all the information. Can't
All
wait to
right,
see
my
you next
friends.
time.
Have a good week. Y'all stay safe out there now.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.